and that follows 4 years where we kept it at around 2.5, 2 3/4. And that's because we implemented a policy with the first budget we did that we were going to keep the levy limit at about $5 million or more. Our excess levy capacity, I should say. We could tax, back here, we could tax another $5 million under the law. So we wanted to hold that at $5 million or perhaps grow it. So that's why we put this in place. Just like the control board put it something similar in place back in the early 2000s. Early 1990s. Of course, that followed 3 years of very large tax increases in the city. All this numbers come right off the Department of Revenue website. So, this was killing people. 3.25%, almost 7, over 8% increases in taxes during those periods. This is our reserves. What we've called reserves, this is what Moody's and the Department of Revenue kind of refer to as reserves of financial flexibility. We've grown that $5 million, we're now $12 million below the levy limit.
How important is it to knock down those future unfunded liabilities?
Well, it's important. It's important for the bond rating, our cost of borrowing money. Our pension liability now is down to $170 million unfunded liability. That will be paid off by 2034, and then there's a precipitous drop. We don't, that's about $16 million this year. That retirement assessment, that goes away largely. Then that can start funding the retiree. So that, this sort of be a soft landing for everything if done properly. But if you just kick the can down the road, it becomes a major issue for the city and for other communities. And if we put that $8 million in, that will be one of the largest accounts of its type in the state, which has to reflect well. And there's two ways that free cash can go down. One, you can actually take from it with a vote, or you can do bad budgeting and expect that you're going to have high receipts, miscellaneous receipts and other revenues, and when those don't materialize, it hits your bottom line, it hits your fund balance. What we do is we take it right away. We put it into the stabilization fund, and it requires a 2/3 vote of the legislative body to take it out. For fiscal year 15, it's hard to say at this point, but if I had to predict at this point, this red will disappear again. That will be up in here. The green will go up by $2 million or thereabouts. This will stay the same. This will probably stay the same as well. So we'll go up. If we were here a year from now, this should be about $30 million.
The trouble is, from the beginning of the fiscal year, July 1st, until free cash is certified, it's not available for appropriation. It doesn't exist. When you put money in a stabilization fund, it is always there. It doesn't have to be recertified. It's a special account. So it's more liquid for the full 12 months of the year.
Okay, so why wouldn't you just equalize it this year? Is it because it's an election year? All right. No,
I'll
but
tell you what,
that's
why
what
would you come out with an editorial suggesting that?
But that's why you're saying that you want to try to keep these spikes or these swings and stuff. So you want to, if you were to build a culture of equalizing it, right? Except for Belmont Avenue, people who live on Belmont Avenue.
That's essentially what we were doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I would have preferred that we be up
Right.
in this area.
1.2%. Okay.
1.2, 1.5, 2%, and then when you have that, okay, let's say this year. I'm careful when I say this because God knows where this will end up, how this will be used against me. But if we had the ability to do that last year, let's say instead of going at 0, we went to a higher number. We didn't need it. We could have put it into the stabilization fund and built that up. And then you could actually, if you were really trying to adhere to that concept, then when there was a year that you needed to go beyond that, you could draw out of the stabilization fund to hold the line. But it needs everyone's buy-in.
stabilization money, once you use it, it's gone, just like free cash. Once you use it, it's gone.
Right.
The idea is to match the recurring needs with the recurring revenues. And if your forecast show a one-time jump in expenditures because of something odd that's happening, that's when you use the reserves. It's not that, you know, it goes into some black hole and you never use the reserves, but use them for one-time problems or issues or challenges.
Keep the cost down on enterprise fund increases, so like
No.
water, sewer.
That's stabilization, general fund, and the water, wastewater, parking are all enterprise funds.
And to a certain extent, that's happening in the wastewater fund right now. Each year, they're drawing down
Right.
that balance. So they're using their own stabilization to do that.
Well, they've got $9 million
Yeah.
in that account. And over time, our goal is to get that down, the fund balance there, probably down to about $1 million, $500,000 to $1 million. But there's so much work that needs to take place. That's why we're going up in rates, so that we don't draw that down so fast that you have to have a very large rate increase to get that back up. Water, we don't see an increase in water rates for years. Same with parking. We've got some capital needs in parking that we'll have to address, but I think we're sitting at $1 million in the parking enterprise.
Right.
We set up a new enterprise for the auditorium.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, we're saving about 70, it's probably going to be closer to $100 million. Excuse me, $100,000 it'll save on the auditorium this year.
If, you know, I know the budget calls for, I guess, a $250,000 loss at the auditorium. If the loss is greater, where does that money come from?
Any deficit in any enterprise fund is absorbed in the general fund. The way that loss would have to happen, though, is not because they overspent, because we're appropriating money the way we are, where there's $1.3 million in there that they can spend. They can't overspend that. The increase in any deficit would occur because they took less money in, less revenue.
Or we appropriate $320,000 on July 1st, essentially, it disappeared. Now, you know, we've got that $250,000 to draw upon, but each and every month, the Board of Trustees will review the financials with Lowell, and if they're falling behind, they can cut costs. Because they're the ones that have control over how much money is being spent. So if Global comes in and says, you know, we're not hitting our targets, then the trustees can say, well, we have to, you know, cut down on some costs.
Can we cut Marty's costs? Can we cut them up there? I mean, it is, you know, it could work.
Oh, in terms of the sharing of costs?
Yeah, I think Marty's going to save on it.
He is going to save on it, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
See, how do you separate the two? See, I think Marty Laurie's point was good. I mean, you can't be masked to two different enterprises.
I don't know if that's entirely true. If you were to, what's the term? Universal copy desk? That's essentially the same thing, isn't it? You're all sharing costs of all the different organizations. That's essentially what we'd be doing here.
But do you have any leverage in this contract to say you've got to look at both sides, or can they just choose we're going over here and make all the cuts?
We have the ability to control our portion of the budget. But you know, it's that notion of sharing different resources. I mean, SMG to an extent, they're a terrible example probably to use because they were such a disaster over at the arena, but they shared costs within their organization. Global, leave the auditorium out of it. Global shares costs with the arena with other parts of their, you know, their overhead. That's what you hire them for, is that they can bring in that expertise that is being paid for by all of their facilities.
$3 million deficit in the school department.
That's correct.
That's gone.
Right. We came up with $1.5 million more, and they made cuts in other portions to make that.
Where do they cut, do you know?
I don't know that. So, but and the reason we can do that is because the charter school is going to open.
Is it a $14 million capital? What's your mark for school?
That kind of
Well, they're going to open. They're not going to open with that many kids.
Do they have a space yet?
Yeah,
It might be
by the
tonight.
end of the week.